Victim Rights Week nationally. This is something that we need to focus on not only on a national level, but I think when it comes down to individuals that we know and love and we live with as neighbors in our communities that become victims, we have to honor those victims and make sure that their rights are protected, as well as the rights of those that are the alleged accused. I am really proud to be a representative and an author of this bill with so many of my colleagues behind me and alongside me. We have worked hard to get this through the legislature last session and made it through with flying colors. I think everybody understands the importance of this legislation, and I am looking forward to this being on May's agenda. We've spoken with leadership on both sides of the building, and that looks like that's when it's going to be up and on the floor. So we're looking for support from all of you in the communities. When this does pass the legislature, it will go to the people for a referendum. We have had just super strong support across the aisle on this piece of legislation and the importance of it to making sure that we upgrade our victim protections that are covered not only in our Constitution that was put in '93, but also Chapter 950. So this is going to be really positive. So again, thank you so much for being here. Next up, I think, is going to be Senator Carpenter. Yep. We have to head up to caucus because we are on the floor today, both sides of the building. So thank you again for being here. We really appreciate your support. Senator Carpenter.
Thanks, Dan. Well, I was looking it up here. Mark on your calendars April 7th. Once the legislature passes this constitutional amendment on second consideration, that's the next major election that'll be up, and it'll be the presidential election. And it'll allow voters to express their desires on placing this in the Constitution. But I think we're all here to represent the people that were victims of a lot of these crimes, victims that were themselves damaged and hurt by the actions of another person, whether it be drunk driving, rape, all the other things that devastate people's lives, but also their families that surround them, and all the consequences that a person has to deal with for the rest of their lives. And I believe it's important to work in a bipartisan matter with Senator Van Wanggaard and Attorney General Josh Call for all us to work together and show the legislature can accomplish something that the people definitely would support. So again, April 7th, 2020, don't forget to vote.
I'm Representative Todd Novak. I'm very honored to co-author this bill with Senator Wanggaard, Senator Carpenter, and I also would like to thank Attorney General Call for jumping right on this as soon as he took office and giving his support. It's been a long journey, many hearings. I want to thank many of the victims that have gone through a lot in their lives and coming forward, telling their stories at 2, 3, 4 hearings, and they know they have a voice. We're steadfast in this. I look for this to be on the Assembly for Marsy's Law in April, and it is has extreme bipartisan support, and the victims have been heard, will be heard, and I look forward to this getting on the ballot next April. And what a great week to honor all the victims in the state for Crime Victims Week, and no better thing to talk about than Marsy's Law. So I would like to thank my colleagues for their support, and everybody that's pushed this. We're here for you. We're not giving up, and we will get this on the floor, and we will be to the voters next April. So I thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Sean Marsy.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Chief Sean Marsky. I'm the Chief of the Sturtevant Police Department in Racine County and the President of the Wisconsin Chiefs of Police Association. It truly is an honor for me to be here to stand with my good friend Terry from Racine County, as well as the other victims that have shared with us their stories. And those of us in law enforcement, we see it right off the bat in responding to crimes and the impact that the victims are experiencing. That's why we're a proud supporter, the chiefs and sheriffs and other major law enforcement associations in Wisconsin, of Marsy's Law. We believe that Marsy's Law is just right because it's equal rights for the victims, and those victims didn't ask to be in the courtroom. They were thrust into it. And so the bipartisan coalition in bringing Marsy's Law to legislation here in Wisconsin is a strong and growing coalition, and it should be. So therefore, our association urges the state legislature to pass this worthwhile legislation to bring Marsy's Law to fruition. Thank you. I'll then turn it over to Ian from the WCASA.
Thank you for that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ian Henderson. I'm from the Wisconsin Coalition Against Sexual Assault. In the United States, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. The goal of Sexual Assault Awareness Month is to raise public awareness about sexual violence and educate communities as to how to prevent it and to support survivors. We appreciate Governor Tony Evers issuing a proclamation honoring Sexual Assault Awareness Month here in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men will experience contact sexual violence at some point in their lives. We also know that women of color are disproportionately impacted by sexual violence, and historically marginalized communities face additional barriers to reporting and accessing culturally appropriate services. Now, we know that 1 month alone isn't enough to solve this serious and widespread issue of sexual violence. However, the attention April generates is an opportunity to energize and support prevention efforts and to support survivors throughout the year. WCASA is pleased to support Marsy's Law because it represents an effort to strengthen crime victim rights, including those for sexual assault survivors. However, we think it's really important you listen to the voices of survivors as to why this issue is so important to them. And I would just like to close by echoing the charge the governor gave to us when issuing the Sexual Assault Awareness Month proclamation. All survivors deserve to be believed and supported, regardless of when they come forward. And I would like to now introduce Christina Trell.
Thank you. I became a victim, almost 4 years ago now. And when I first began working with Marsy's Law, I was still very much internally a victim, not just from the man that strangled and beat me, but also I was re-victimized through the legal system, feeling as though I wasn't an important part of this process of seeking justice for the person that did this to me, the person that chose to say that I was less than him, less than a regular human being that deserves decency and consideration. With Marsy's Law, we've shown that we want to let a victim know that they are not going to be treated that way through the legal system, that we want to offer respect and consideration and not continue to treat them as victims and help them along the road to becoming survivors, in which being a part of this process can definitely help along the way. Giving victims a voice seemed like some insurmountable task when we first started this. And in the 2 years that I've been involved, every time I come before anyone to share my story, along the way, someone stops me and says, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for speaking up when we couldn't. And being able to be a part of letting everyone else out there know that there is people here that aren't being heard, that need to be heard, that need to be a part of this process and be treated in the same playing field as the person that chose to put them there, which wasn't themselves. Just how important that is. And if raising crime victims' rights to the level of their accused on a constitutional level, if we can offer just a tiny piece of the consideration, of the respect, and just general caring for another human being that I've experienced working with Marsy's Law, if we can do that as a state and say to victims, you're important, you are part of this process, and we're going to treat you as such, then we'll have done something so absolutely wonderful, and we can be one of the states leading the way in saying that victims have rights. So we ask for your continued support through Crime Victims' Rights Week. And I'm going to introduce another victim and survivor, Gabrielle Stathis.
At the age of 13, I underwent months of abuse that finally culminated in the sexual assault by a teacher in a dark and secluded classroom at a school event. I was assured, no matter what happened by the school, that I would never see this teacher again. That did not happen. As most young victims do, I said nothing. I denied everything, and I even defended my abuser after he approached me and told me if I said anything, he would be punished and his young daughter would be suffering for it. So I became voiceless at that point. At 19, I finally spoke up and worked with the wonderful Special Crimes Unit to finally be heard. To strengthen my 5-year case, I was asked to meet with him and speak. So I willingly wore a wire and sat next to this man while he apologized for irrevocably changing my life and called himself, quote, a snake in the grass. He was taken into custody and I was moved along in the court system. Navigating the court was a terrifying, confusing, and very often lonely experience. I was granted a no contact order, but to get it, I had to give the man that had violated me all of my personal information, my home address, where I worked, my phone number. He had everything. When I was hospitalized with a chronic illness, his defense attorney would call to check on my status. So finally the hospital worked it out so I would be an invisible patient, which was humiliating to work with staff. In the process, I became helpless and literally invisible. I was often given little or no notice of court dates and preparation. Had it not been for the 3 fantastic detectives that went far and above their call of duty, I would never have made it through the preliminary hearing itself. I had no idea what the status of my case was or what was coming next. I would go down to the courthouse and often sit for hours just to be told to go home, and nothing was happening today. Once again, he had all the power and I was naive and sitting there alone. They told me I had strong evidence and I would get a trial. I was prepared for a trial. I wanted a trial. I had a half-an-hour tape of my abuser apologizing and rationalizing, but a trial never happened. His case was pled down from a 40-year sentence to 6 months, with only the first 90 days served, until after an assessment hearing. The man that had brazenly sexually assaulted a child was allowed work release in that time and even allowed to go pick up and drop his children off at school. I had no say at all and no power to do anything about it. Victims need a voice. I was not allowed to even attend the final release hearing, much less say anything. I got a call days later saying he had been released. The judge who released him didn't get to hear how he ruined my life. I started this journey as a powerless child and it ended in an equally powerless adult with nowhere left to turn, victimized and forgotten by the justice system. No victim should ever have to feel powerless or without a voice, and Marsy's law supports victims by giving them knowledge, information, and notice, and the voice that we all deserve. So it's time to put victims on even ground in Wisconsin. Thank you for your support. Oh, sorry. And after me, I would like to present Deanna Culver.
Hi, good morning. I'm looking forward to the passing of Marsy's law because as a victim of numerous things I'll start off with I wrote a poetry book, and I write poetry to help me get through things that I've been through, and in hopes that my poetry book will be out there for other people to read and be supported and know that they're not alone and that they too have the courage and strength to make it through anything. So my poem book is published finally, open box poetry, and I'm going to read one of the poems today. I've been through being bullied in school, out of school, in the workplace, and harassment, sexual harassment in the workplace. I've been through child abuse growing up in foster homes, and also with my biological parents. I also was in a few relationships for domestic violence that on one occasion I basically was left for dead by my ex-husband. I've also been through losing people to drunk driving, suicide because of either being bullied or harassed or something going on. Mental illness, we need to help break the stigma on that, definitely, because as a victim survivor, our mental state needs to be healed too, not just our physical being or anything. And so I'm gonna read one of my poems. It's How Long Will It Haunt Me? I Was Raped. I have nightmares that devour me. I wish I could have escaped. What could I have done differently to flee? How stupid was I to look in your direction? I can't help but feel agony in the pit of my gut. I looked away from you, hoping you'd notice my rejections. You made me uncomfortable with your looks. You put me in a rut. I wasn't sure what you were about to do to me. You gave me no notice, for all I had was your unpredictable looks as a sign. The thoughts were not visible on what was about to happen to me. My whole body still shivers in disgusted visions of your face above mine, for you obviously knew what you wanted to do. Clueless was the thing that was in front of me, for you were going to change my life. I was completely fearful of you. Told me to shut up or you'd cut my throat with your pocket knife. You took your strength and broke my balance. Tossed me down like a rag doll. I felt like my life was over and my family to be without me, unbalanced. I wanted to run but could only slightly crawl. You then held me forcefully and shut my mouth with your hands. I yelled at you to please leave me alone. You pushed me forcefully down into a chair and next to a table stand. I continued to beg you to stop and leave me alone. As I fell into the chair, you laughed and beamed, grabbed my thighs and ripped them apart, tore my pants from side to side like a messed up scum. I screamed at you loudly to leave me alone, go and depart. I wrestled with you in hopes of breaking free, but you pounced on me like an unfed animal. As my eyes filled with tears, I could no longer blink to see. There was no way to get you off me. You were irrational. You tore my arms away from my sides, then held me tightly to the carpeted ground. Continue to have your way with me as my eyes became blind. I started to become numb, unconscious, and losing all sounds. You shoved your knee into my stomach as I grasped for air. My tears that I cried felt like my heart's blood draining. Get off me, stop, leave me alone. I'd be screaming into your ears. You'd yell at me to shut up, or you'd F me up more as I was complaining. As you yelled, you spit in my already dampened eyes with your words of hate, told me how pitiful I was to be a woman, but oh, so great to have sex with after the bait. You inserted your male genitals as if you were the number one man in the kingdom. Your hands felt like needles stabbing my body. I was invisibly and completely numb. I felt so alone and wondered if I was your only victim. I wanted so badly to move, to get up and run. Your actions drained and depleted everything in me, including my soul. You came inside me with no care for what you had done. I don't know why you abused and raped me, for I no longer was whole. You got up and kicked me and said, get dressed and tell no one. You buckled your pants with a sigh of power. As I tried to hide my fears and tears in hopes that you wouldn't repeat what you did, I felt my throat filling up with acid as it was horribly sour. My inner self was feeling weak, but at the same time rigid. I felt ashamed. My mind kept going to what if I have a disease or if I'm pregnant. I wish you went away and taken your bodily fluids out of me with you, I can't believe you raped me and had no worries about how you treated me. I thought, but what if I'm pregnant? I felt so disgusted, so damaged and gross all the way through. It wasn't fair to an unborn child or to me that you took it upon yourself to take away my dignity and personal space. I smelled like you, and it devoured me. How can I look at this world as a safe place? I wish this was not a recurring nightmare, so I can finally breathe and break free. You left and took a part of my life that I'll never get back. I showered to scrub your horrible scent off of me. I tried so hard, but because of you, it was my strength that I lacked. It was difficult to keep my eyes open for the tears that clouded my vision to see. Your smell wasn't coming off of my body. I scrubbed so hard, even with bleach. I scrubbed my privates, and nothing came out of you was stuck inside of me. I hated it. I kept crying and screaming, for I was smelling you grossly on me. I scrubbed harder, for I smelled like bleach and not like a shampoo peach. I was stuck there crying as the water fell upon my shameful, disgusted, broken body. That didn't seem to be enough soap, water, or bleach to get you off of me. You invaded my life and my whole mind, soul, and body. You raped me and left me completely, numbly, and undoubtedly dead. As I was raped, although your actions are done, nightmares still haunt me. Nightmares and more nightmares running through my head. My whole body still shivers in disgusted visions of your face above mine. I've seen you in public places and I've frozen in my steps. I'm fearful that you'll come around a corner and step over my boundary lines. I'm broken so far deep down remembering your threats. My body runs out of my skin when I see you in town, for I fill up with anger. Then my heart pounds, my hands sweat. I'm nauseated. Oh, break the chains off me. I did not go to the police, not because of you, but for the safety of my family, so that they were not in any danger or humiliated too. I live with nightmares that I am still trying to break free and make it through. How long will it haunt me? I was raped. I've been raped a few times. This particular time, I did not go to the cops because of my children. I did not want them to have to be dragged through the media in any way, shape, or form. So part of me dislikes myself because I didn't go to the police, but I had children to protect. The one time that I did go to the police, I went to court. One day is all I got to say anything. They gave me a $16 check in the mail a week later for attending, and then I didn't hear nothing from the cops, from the courts, nothing. It was as if it never happened to me. The most humiliating thing any victim, survivor can go through is not being heard, not being taken serious, being told this too shall pass, or it's all in your head, or it didn't happen, you're making it up. To tell you the truth, listen. Really hear what they're saying and listen. I don't want 3 of my daughters to have to go through what I've gone through, from domestic violence to child abuse to my friend being murdered, drunk driving people, drinking and driving and killing my loved ones. This is just part of my story. I have so much more that I've recovered from. I am strong, I am a survivor, and it's because of my children and my grandchildren that I am still alive. Because of everything that I have been through, I have tried killing myself numerous times. And you know what? Without my children and without my grandchildren, I would not be here, honestly. Because it is so painful to live in this body knowing that I wasn't heard as a child, as a teenager, as a young mom, adult, and I'm 49 now. So I'm here to speak up and say, please help pass this, because we all need each other to help one another. Thank you.
Terry Jandusa Nikolai, Marcy's Law State Chair. You've heard from some of our survivors, and I have witnessed the strength and tenacity of the human spirit. All of you, thank you so much for being here, for telling your stories, for them telling their stories, for us telling our stories as survivors. I think we paved the way for other victims to be able to come out and to be heard. In Marcy's Law, what we are trying to do is just even the playing ground. We are not looking for any special treatment. Are just looking for equal treatment for victims. And in my case, when my husband tried murdering me and putting me in a garbage can and stuffed me in a storage locker, and I was found the next day, we had issues like, even though we moved after that, when we went to court, the address was on everything. And he had used that to have his father find my new house and take a picture of the new house and give it to people that he was incarcerated with that were soon to come out of prison to try to come and kill my new husband and I. Things have been going on and on. That was 15 years ago in 2004 when my attempted murder happened. 15 years. We still deal with him harassing us through the court system, through many different ways, through trying to get people to come and, assassinate us. Sometimes it never ends. But the strength and the tenacity of what we can accomplish, what we have gone through, is absolutely amazing. I know some of you were afraid to be here and speak up, but once they do, they really feel heard. And Marcy's Law, I believe in working with these people for quite a while now. I have seen that not only are we going to make things better for victims in the state of Wisconsin, we're going to even the playing field. We're going to give them the same level of rights that the accused have, which when I go out in the community and talk to people about, they say, well, yeah, that's pretty much a no-brainer. Again, we're not asking for anything special. We're not taking away anything from the accused. We're just evening and leveling the playing ground so we have equal rights. Our rights right now are statutory. We need to make them constitutional, like the accused have. That's all we're asking for. But not only are we accomplishing that, which, again, we have great bipartisan support, and that's really a feat, especially in today's climate. But I also have seen the transformation of people, of victims, of people that we've worked with here, from the first day that I've met them at the Capitol steps to today, how they have transformed, how their spirits are stronger. They become stronger just because they have that voice, because they know that they're being heard, because they know that Wisconsin is doing something and taking their hand and supporting them along the way. And that, my friends, is what makes all the difference. So thank you. We have Attorney General Josh Cowell, who I've never met before, so nice to meet you. Thank you for being here.
And first, thank you for having me. Thank you for everybody who is here to help raise awareness about this incredibly important issue. Thank you to those of you who are reporting on this. Thank you to everybody who participated in the press conference today. But in particular, I want to thank the survivors for the bravery to come forward. A couple of you mentioned not feeling like you had been heard during the criminal justice process. And I think it's incredible that you are not only making sure that you are heard today, but helping other victims of crime be heard in the future, making sure that people have a voice as they move forward. So thank you so much for being here. It is Crime Victims' Rights Week. That is an excellent time to remind ourselves about the importance of having a justice system that understands that a critical part of what we do must be working to get justice for victims of crime. That we need to take a victim-centric approach as we work to fight crime. We need to remind ourselves of that this week, but we need to make sure that we are acting on that understanding every week of the year in our criminal justice system. Because justice isn't just about punishing people who break the law. It's also about making sure that we're doing what we can to help make victims and their families whole. That includes financially helping to make them whole when we can, and it includes emotionally helping to make people whole by making sure that we have services in place that will help victims of crime. I'm here today to support Marsy's law. I think that we need to do more to make sure that we have protections in law for victims of crime. And I think passing Marsy's law is an important step that we can take in that direction. But I also want to emphasize that I think we need to do more than just pass Marsy's law. I hope that we use the attention that this is raising to the importance of getting justice for victims of crime. I hope that we use the attention that the passage of Marsy's law will draw to that issue, to not only pass this law, but then to go beyond it, to expand our support for victims of crime. There is important work that we do at the Department of Justice, that law enforcement agencies around the state do to support victims. You heard a few people talk about having the person who committed the crime getting their address information. One of the programs that we are proud to administer, we just celebrated the 2nd anniversary of it, is the Safe at Home program, which allows victims of crime to have their addresses protected so that people who've committed the crimes don't get access to that information. I think we need to continue supporting that program. We need to also continue supporting crime victim services professionals, both at our Department of Justice and in counties around the state. Those are the professionals whose primary responsibility is to be an advocate for victims of crime and to make sure that they are putting the best interests of crime victims first. We need to make sure that those offices are adequately funded so that crime victims are able to get the support that they need when crimes happen. And we need to make sure that we're providing funding to make sure that Marsy's law, after it's enacted, is able to be implemented effectively so that we not only have rights in the Constitution, but that we have a way to make sure that those rights are provided to victims across the state of Wisconsin. And we need to support the nonprofits that do the incredible work of assisting victims of all different types of crimes in Wisconsin. Because part of making sure that our justice system acts effectively is making sure that we are treating victims of crime fairly, that we're treating them with respect, and that we're making sure that their rights are protected. So again, I want to say thank you everybody for being here. I encourage everybody to continue speaking out in support of Marsy's law, and I look forward to seeing the legislature pass Marsy's law soon here so that we can move forward and have these rights enshrined into our Constitution. So thank you everybody very much.